can I back out of a real estate contract after inspection?
Yes, you absolutely can. So in Florida, under the standard Florida real estate contract, the as-is contract, there is a certain inspection period. Inspection periods in Florida, typically we see are between about 7 and 14 days on average. It could be a little shorter, it could be longer. If there's a lot of buyers that are bidding on the property, maybe the listing agent saying, well, you got to come a little better than 10 days or 7 days, and maybe it'll get down to 3 days or 5 days. But certainly in a market like a buyer's market, it's typically 7 to 14 days. Under the contract, a buyer can cancel for any reason, as we know. So whether they didn't like something in the property, there was a condition of the property, the roof is leaking, or there's an electric panel that's not going to be properly insurable or cause insurance rate to go up, or any number of examples.
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
Yep.
They could just be in a bad mood that day and say, you know what, I want to go invest in Bitcoin or Ethereum and not in real estate. Whatever the reason is, they don't have to provide a reason. That's the point.
That's during the inspection period.
During the inspection period. So if it's a 10-day inspection period, by day 10 at the latest, they must cancel. And if they don't cancel, that's where things get sticky for the buyer, because if their intention was possibly to cancel and they blow through that 10-day inspection period, unless they have other contingencies like a financing contingency that they'll be able to get out of the contract with, if they don't have that, they're stuck in the contract at that point.
Yeah, exactly. So what I tell my sellers when we go under contract with anyone, it's like, hey, let's see if this works out. Let's go with this one. Let's make the bet here, right? Because the reality is when you're a seller and you sign this as-is purchase agreement that most deals are done with here in South Florida, you're basically giving the buyer a free option for X amount of days, assuming they drop their escrow deposit on time and continue to perform. You're giving them a free option for X amount of days. And so that's the way I like to describe it, because I don't want people thinking on the sell side that are, let's call it just amateurs. They don't sell a lot. They've sold once in their life, whatever. It's like, hey, this could go in our direction or not. They could do whatever they want now, right? We got to provide access and give them access to inspect, et cetera. Now, what she was asking specifically was after, and that's the key. Like, depending on the contract terms, that will dictate, what the consequences are for backing out after. You can cancel a contract, right? You can exit a contract. It's just like, how bad is it going to be for you, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Agreed.
So on some level, like, we've had situations where the seller wanted to back out, and the buyer forced them to close. 6 months later, they sold that house to them.
Yes.
And so on the buy side, that's you're signing an agreement to sell the house or to buy the house, and so like, that's, you could lose your deposit. That could be the resolution, right? So now again, if you're doing a cash contract or a no finance contingency contract, there's less less ways for you to get out. If you do a finance contingent contract, well, then you have your lender that needs to issue a denial letter. Then you can get out. Now that's always a gray area, and this is what I tell my sellers, right? Like, it's, hey, because again, not all these deals get to you, right? The worst ones get to you. Or I'm calling you saying, hey, here's what I got going on. What are your thoughts just legally? And then I'm going to go try to resolve this before we take it that far, right? And so a lot of times it's a gray area when you have a finance contingent deal. There's a loan commitment period. Technically during that loan commitment period, if you can cancel if you can't get loan approval, right?
Agreed.
Or if you get a denial letter. And so, but again, remember how escrow is structured. You're an escrow agent. This is interesting. I'll let you talk about this because this is kind of interesting. Like, escrow is held by a third party, and escrow can't be released unless the parties in the contract agree to release it.
There's only two ways
Right.
that we're releasing an escrow deposit, is either with the consent of both parties, where they sign a release and cancellation, but the parties need to agree on who's getting that deposit. So if there's an escrow deposit dispute, they need to negotiate those terms, and maybe the escrow deposit's going to get split or some negotiation. The only other way we're releasing escrow is with a court order. So meaning if the parties can't agree to something, then the monies have to get moved into the court. It's called interpleading, and then the parties can fight over it, and then a judge decides. And that's the only two ways.
So rarely does it get to Jerron's level, even if there is an escrow dispute. Somehow, some way, we tend to work it out. Like, again, I tell my sellers, yeah, there's an escrow deposit. There's also a finance contingency here. And also remember what we just described, right? Which is, hey, everybody has to agree to release this deposit. So even in a situation where there is a dispute, there's still negotiation around, okay, we got 100,000 in escrow. I'll give you 50 to get me out of this. I'll let you have 50. You take your 50 back, whatever. So it becomes this negotiation. So we've repped sellers and buyers in disputes. And I'll tell you, there's all these different tactics to try to like prevent, even if your buyer is in the wrong, there's different tactics to prevent yourself from losing
the full deposit.
Listen, it's not a fun situation to be in.
No one wins in that situation.
No,
it really doesn't.
It's not fun. So you want to make sure you abide by deadlines, as we've been harping on. But also you need to remember that this isn't like they defaulted. Money gets wired directly to me now.
It's not
right?
instantaneous. And just because maybe a buyer breached the contract does not mean that the escrow just gets released to the seller. That's
No way.
There's a big misconception about that.
On the buy side, you and I have gone through this, not to drag this on, but we know that if they don't sign that cancellation, technically it's kind of hard for them to put it back on the market or sign the backup offer they had. So again, I tell sellers, like, if we have a backup offer and the buyer defaults, we're better off just releasing that escrow deposit to them and moving on to the next guy.
Just keep
because
it moving.
If we dispute this thing for 2-3 weeks or months, you've just lost all this time. You've lost those buyers. We came here to sell the house. And yeah, we don't want them to default. But if they do default, well,
especially if you have backup offers. If you have it, maybe just consider moving on to the next buyer.
Exactly. So this is a complex topic, but the reality is you just don't want to get to that point. Right.
Agreed.
Yeah.